And we're joined by Robert Mellalieu, the Green Party candidate for Central Okanagan-Similkameen-Nicola.
Yes.
So, Robert, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, you were saying prior to this that you didn't come to the Green Party based purely out of concern for the environment, but instead because you think it makes good sense business-wise. Am I right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
So fill me in on that.
Well, a lot of people come to the Green Party for different reasons, and one of the ones that everybody assumes is the reason is because we want to save the spotted owl or the striped salamander. And there are that group of people there, and they have valid concerns. Me, on the other hand, I came to the Green Party because of what my son pointed out to me in the Green Party policy book, was that the economics of the Green Party are much more long-term. There's 7-generation economic plans in the Green Party, whereas the Conservative Party that I used to vote for had 4-year, maybe 8-year plans. The nearest deficit, we're going to do this tax break, that sort of stuff, without looking at the long-term infrastructure of the country. And we need to look at that long-term infrastructure to make the country viable and profitable for years to come.
So you were a conservative turned green,
Yes.
Perhaps more rare than the spotted owl.
You'd be surprised how many conservative people there are in the Green Party, because again, you can't work with the ecology on its own without looking at the finances. And you can't work with the finances unless you're working with the ecology properly, because the ecology gives us our money. That's our resource base in this country.
Okay, so what's your background? You're from the island.
I grew up on Vancouver Island. My dad actually worked in Shemana Sawmill and when it shut down. I moved to Calgary, went to DeVry Institute of Technology, where I was an electronics technician. I didn't work as an insurance broker. And then I went to Winnipeg and fixed big mainframe computers, HAL type size computers at car dealerships. And then I married the best thing I could find in Winnipeg, and we moved here about 26 years ago. I'd have to do the math.
And you've taken a few runs at office?
Yes.
How many?
Well, once federally and once provincially. I ran against Christy Clark.
Right. So, people look at this riding and they say, it's really a 2-horse race.
Yes.
But there you are, flying the flag.
Yes.
I guess pundits would say, not much chance of winning, but maybe a chance of building up Green support so that maybe in the future people could say, you know what, the Greens could take this, but maybe in the future. Is that how you see it? Or?
Yeah, in the future, October 21st.
So we have seen a surge,
Yes.
We had a week of protests. A 16-year-old girl from Europe became famous for her very forceful plea at the United Nations.
Yes.
Do you see a growing surge that you can capitalize on?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I think Greta's really brought things forward, and her very simple message is to read the science. And the science is clear, and it has been for many, many years. We need to trust the science. Whenever we don't trust the science, we screw things up. And we must be wary of politicians bringing too much to the table with a whole bunch of tax credits and all these different things that are micromanaged. We need to look at the federal level. We should be looking at the big dreams, the big goals, not soccer shoes for wealthy families.
Right. So do you think we can transition to a green economy without causing, a serious problem to the economy along the way?
Absolutely. Well, we're going to make the economy so much better if we transfer to
But are we not going to have to pass through, then, if we were to follow a green plan, through a very turbulent period where there's lots of people actually losing out financially?
No, not at all. The oil workers, who will be the main ones hit, and that'll be a transition over 10 years, they will get retrained. I mean, welding steel is welding steel. We need steel to build wind turbines. We need concrete workers to build dams. We need all sorts of those same skill sets to do all this new infrastructure that we want to put in place. So it doesn't have to be a pipe. In fact, if you look at a turbine, it's a pipe on its side. So that sort of stuff is still going to be needed. But the nice thing about it is they won't have to go to Fort McMurray for 3 weeks off and 3 weeks on. They can stay in this town, and they can build wind turbines up on those hills over there, and we can be fine with that and maintain them and rebuild them after 25 years and all that stuff. So we'll have lots of local, high-paying, high-tech jobs in this town.
Right. Okay. Now, a couple of other things on the Green Party platform about democracy.
Democracy.
Lower voting age?
Lower voting age, because they are going to be the recipients of all the mistakes that we, our older generation are making in the way they are voting. They're not looking for that long term. They're not looking after the children as much as they should be. One of my main stump speeches is, it's not about you, it's about your kids. And I try to remind grandparents and parents that what we're here on this earth for is to look after the kids.
Okay, now that policy is a bit self-serving for the Green Party, because you're probably more likely to get a young person to vote Green than other demographics.
No, that's not necessarily true. One of the biggest influencers of children's votes, young adults' votes, is their parents and their teachers. And we may have a conflict there. On the other hand, though, it's also interesting to feel that, or to understand that one of the big influences of a parent's vote is their children.
Right. So you could have, if you had a 16-year-old able to vote, you could have some parents pretty much making their kids vote how they want. And so that would be a bit of an issue if you were to gain that sort of a policy. The other one is proportional representation, which again, I would say...
hold on, that's an issue whether you're 16 or not. There's people in my family that I don't talk to anymore. And
perhaps less so, though, at a higher age.
Yeah, but...
Proportional representation also does sort of, would be helpful to a party like the Greens that so regularly gets a certain amount of support, but not enough to elect somebody in so many parts of the country.
PR would be good for all parties. What would have to happen when PR is first initialized, what we suddenly see is a much more cooperation in Parliament. So rather than going on a committee and you've got X number of members and I can, this is just for fun and I can finally, at the end of this conversation, I can veto. You go into a committee room realizing everybody's got some skin in the game, and you come to a consensus rather than some master command to say we're going to go this way. That consensus means that a policy that's created will be more viable because it's taken the input from all the different parties and all the different...
Hang on, are you telling me that elected representatives could get together in a chamber and discuss things constructively?
Yeah. And going back to the Green Party, I've been in lots of meetings with the Green Party, and you go into a room to a meeting, and there's a guy like me, I'm wearing my jacket and tie, and there's, climate scientists with PhDs, and then there's some guy wearing a hemp jacket. On the deck over there's some guy smoking a doobie, and we all get in the room, and we sit down, and we all have serious concerns and serious problems. And I first time I went to one of these meetings, I was like, oh man, I'm not going to make the ferry back. There's no way. And we got through it, and we came up with a really substantial policy that made sense to everybody in the room. And I remember sitting on the ferry on the way back going, wow, that is so different than any other meeting I've ever been to. And I was totally inspired. And that's the kind of action that Elizabeth May keeps talking about. We can all work together. That's why she wants to have a cabinet, a client cabinet. We want to get all the parties' input on these things. And if we create a policy together, that policy sticks.
Right. Well, thanks for telling us all about your candidacy and all that stuff. We appreciated your time.
Wow, that went quick.
It did. And thank you for watching Kelowna Now.